and welcome to Stories for Wonderful Children. I'm Dan Wendelin, your host and storyteller. Years ago, I began recording the bedtime stories I told my children every night. Now, I'd like to share those stories with you. I hope you enjoy my Stories for Wonderful Children. There's a little girl named Winella, and she lives in a very special house, full of many special rooms. But the most special room of all is Winella's room. The reason Winella's room is special on this night is that she has a friend sleeping over for her very first sleepover. And tonight, everything in Winella's room is black because the lights are out and you can't see anything at all. Winella and Traci have just finished telling each other secrets. Winella had told Traci the secret that her favorite colors were blue and pink and purple, which wasn't really much of a secret. If you looked around her room, you probably could have guessed that. And Traci had told Winella the secret that she wanted to own her own horse someday. And Winella had told Traci the secret that there was a cat's paw highway in her backyard, and that someday she would show Traci how to use it. And Traci had told Winella the secret that when she had been born, she had been born with an extra sixth toe on her left foot that had been removed with an operation. And then they had been so tired from telling secrets that they closed their eyes and they drifted off to sleep. They slept for quite some time, but at some point, deep in the night when it was still dark and quiet outside, they both woke up. And when they first woke up, they wondered why they had woken up. And then they both heard this noise that had probably woken them. The noise went like this.
Bingo, Theodore.
And Traci said, Winella, what's that noise? And Winella said, oh, don't worry, Traci. That just sounds like Theodore. And Traci said, what's a Theodore? And the noise said, I am Theodore, and I was here looking for Winella. Who are you? And Traci said, Winella, can we turn on the light? So Winella turned on the light next to her bed, and when she turned on the light next to her bed, Traci could see that there, lying across the foot of Winella's bed, was the biggest, blackest cat that either one of them had ever seen in their whole life. And Winella said, that is Theodore. And Traci said, oh, well, it's nice to meet you, Theodore. And Theodore said, it's nice to meet you too. Who are you? And she said, oh, I'm Traci. I'm Winella's friend and her next door neighbor. And Theodore said, wonderful. He said, Winella, I'm here with a message from Flibbertigibbet. And Winella said, whispered over to Traci, Flibbertigibbet is the king of the cats. And Traci said, oh. And Winella said, what does Flibbertigibbet need, Theodore? And Theodore said, Flibbertigibbet wanted to let you know that tomorrow is the day of the annual beach party with the ponies, and that he would like to invite you to come. I'm sure he wouldn't mind if your friend came along too. And Winella and Traci looked at each other, and Winella said, well, I think we'd probably like that. Traci will have to ask her mommy, and we will come by tomorrow when we wake up in the morning. Theodore said, sleep well. And then Winella turned her light back out, and she and Traci turned over and went back to sleep. When they opened their eyes again, light was coming in Winella's windows, and it was morning. They both stretched, and Traci said, Winella, I had the strangest dream about a big black cat waking us up in the middle of the night. And Traci said, Winella said, that was not a dream, Traci. That really happened. And Traci said, really? Wow. So they went downstairs, they slid downstairs, and they thought about what they wanted for breakfast. And they decided that for breakfast, they wanted to have some cereal. And so her mommy got them out the cereal, and she said, you'll have to get your own milk this morning, Winella, because I have to go. Winella said, okay, is it okay if I go to Flibberty Gibbet's for a party? And her mommy said, sure. And then her mommy left. Winella and Traci got into the refrigerator and got out the squirt guns full of milk. And
they spray them. They get their milk with a squirt gun.
They do. They each had a squirt gun, and it was full of milk. And they took their cereal bowls to the table, and then they squirted the milk out of the squirt gun until they had enough milk. And then they filled up their glasses. And then they ate, and they told each other jokes while they ate, and they were cracking each other up.
Like what?
Well, Winella told Traci the joke that went, why did the rooster not cross the road? And Traci said, why not? And Winella said, to prove that he wasn't a chicken. And they both laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And then Traci told Winella the joke that said, did you hear the one about the stupid ghost? And Winella said, no. And Traci said, he climbed over the wall. And they laughed and laughed and laughed. Then after they finished their breakfast, Traci called over to her house and said, Mommy, Winella wanted to know if I could go to a party. Is that okay before I come home? And her mommy wanted to know if Winella's mommy had said it was okay and how they were going to get there. And when Traci told her that Winella's mommy had said it was fine and that they were taking the Cat's Paw Highway, her mommy said that that was fine, but that she had to be home right after lunch because they were going to go to her soccer game. So Winella looked at her watch and she saw that it was already 10 o'clock. And that meant they only had about 3 hours until Traci had to leave for her soccer game. So they dashed out into the backyard, and Winella told Traci about how you stood on the wall in the backyard and turned around 3 times and said, Cat's Paw Highway, Cat's Paw Highway, Cat's Paw Highway, take me where I want to go. And Traci said, that works? It just looks like a wall to me. And Winella said, trust me. And so they both got up there, and they were getting ready to start, and they turned around once saying, Cat's Paw Highway, when Traci said, stop! And Winella said, what? And Traci said, where do I want to go? And Winella said, oh yeah, that's right. She said, okay, you want to go to Flibberty Gibbet's palace by the sea. And Traci said, do I need to know what it looks like? And Winella said, no, you just have to think really hard. I want to go to Flibberty Gibbet's palace by the sea. And so they tried it again. They turned around 3 times. Cat's Paw Highway, Cat's Paw Highway, Cat's Paw Highway, take us where we want to go. And then suddenly they were moving very fast. And when they turned around, there they were in front of Flibberty Gibbet's palace. And down on the beach by the sea, they could already see a bunch of ponies running around, playing with the cats. And Winella said, hey, there's Flibberty Gibbet. And Traci said, there's a tiger down there. And Winella said, of course there's a tiger. That's Flibberty Gibbet. He's the king of the cats. And Traci said, is he dangerous? And Winella said, well, he can be dangerous, but not to his friends. And we're his friends. And Traci said, okay, that sounds okay. So they walked down to the beach, and Flibberty Gibbet saw them and came bounding over, and when she saw the tiger bounding towards her, Traci sort of went, eek! She was a little worried. But Winella said, Flibberty Gibbet, hi, I brought my friend Traci. And Flibberty Gibbet said, oh, Winella, I'm so glad you could come. You have brought a little girl with you? And Winella said, yes, this is my friend Traci. And Flibberty Gibbet sort of bowed his big shaggy head, and he said, it is very nice to meet you, Traci. Tell me, do you like a tuna fish? And Traci said, why, yes, I do like tuna fish. And Flibberty Gibbet said, I knew you looked like a smart little girl. Come along. We have a tuna fish sandwiches for lunch, and then I will introduce you to some of my friends, the ponies. So they went over to where all the food was set up, and they all got tuna fish sandwiches, and they ate their tuna fish sandwiches, and there was fruit.
Guess a bunch of the cats eat tuna fish because because the king likes tuna fish.
Yep.
What was the pony's name?
The ponies were named. There were several ponies, but the ones that were nearby that Flibbertigibbet introduced them to said, "Well, hello, my name is Twirl." And another pony said, "And my name is Kimono." And Traci and Winella said, "Wow, we've never really met ponies before. We are so honored to meet you." And Traci said, "I want to have a horse of my own when I grow up." And the ponies looked at each other and they said, "Well, do you have time to stay and play?" And Winella and Traci looked at their watches and they said, "Well, we have a little time. Traci has to leave soon to be home in time for her soccer game." So first thing they did was they ran out in the water where the waves are coming in and they built sand castles. And then they splashed along and found some shells. And then they got into the water up to their knees and felt the waves just kind of moving against their knees. And they really had a wonderful time.
How is Winella's hair?
What color is Winella's hair? We've never thought about that before. I think Winella's hair is the color of dark honey.
What?
Winella's hair is the color of dark honey. So, then the ponies said, "Well, before you leave, would you like a ride?" And Winella and Traci said, "Wow, a ride, could we?" And the ponies said, "Sure." So, Winella got on Kimono's back, and Traci got on Twirl's back. And the ponies decided that they were going to have a race right down the beach. They saw a tree way down at the end of the beach, and Twirl with Traci on her back, and Winella on Kimono were going to race down to the tree and then race back to see who was fastest. So
I'm rooting for Kimono.
the girls both held onto the ponies' manes really tight, and the ponies took off. And at first, it looked like Kimono was going to win because she got right out in front for the whole way down to the tree. But by the time they got to the tree and started to head back, she was starting to get tired, and Twirl started to catch up with her, and Twirl got so that her head was up to Kimono's hip, and then her head was up to Kimono's shoulder, and then she was ahead of Kimono by a full neck length. But then the finish line was in sight, and so Winella leaned forward and whispered in Kimono's ear. She said, "Go, Kimono, go, we're almost there." And Kimono used the last of her energy, and she sped ahead and caught up and made up the distance, and the ponies crossed the finish line at the exact same time. They tied. And they laughed and said, "Wow, that's the first time we've ever tied." And Traci said, "Well, who usually wins these races?" And Kimono says, "Well, I've won 4 times, and Twirl's won 3 times. And she said, "And now we've tied once." And Winella said, "Uh-oh, Traci." She looked at her watch and saw that it was 1:45. She said, "We'd better go. Thank you so much for having us, Flibbertigibbet. It was nice meeting you, ponies." And the ponies said, "Goodbye." And Flibbertigibbet said, "It was so nice seeing you again, Winella, and Traci. I very much enjoyed meeting you." And so they waved goodbye, they got on the Cat's Paw Highway, and they turned around 3 times, saying, "Cat's Paw Highway, Cat's Paw Highway, Cat's Paw Highway, take us where we want to go." And they went very fast. And then they turned around, and they were in Winella's front yard, and Traci went home for her soccer game. And that is the end of the story.
Thanks for listening to Stories for Wonderful Children. I created, told, and edited today's story. Questions and witty commentary were supplied by my children. The music was composed by Brandon Thompson. If you enjoy the show, please tell someone about it, or leave a review on your podcast provider. Our email is storiesforwonderfulchildren@gmail.com. You can also contact us on Facebook or Twitter. I'll see you next time.